Well, thank you so much for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I am now 50 years old, so I just missed the moon landings in 69 and to 72. So I just born after that, and I've heard a lot about that. I was always interested in space stuff. I am now, as a hobby, working together with What About It Felix on the Space Channel, and also with the Total Space Network guys. They are very cool, and we are doing together the To the Future, which we inherited from Jishuan and Sebastian. And yeah, as I mentioned, I was always interested in space, and I followed it quite in detail from I don't know, maybe 14 years old, something like that. But at the time there was no internet, so it was much harder to do that. Now it's paradise of data and footages and photos, everything. We got everything. So later it was not so easy. Yeah.
What is your first space memory that you could think of? The first time in your life that you're like, oh, I was thinking about space.
Yeah, probably it was there was a scientific news show in the Hungarian television, and it was called Delta, and that was my weekly highlight of the week. Every week on weekend, I sat in front of the TV, and it was on, I think it was on it was on Sunday, and they provided a lot of interesting news, and probably from there I could see some space related stuff, and also because of there were this cooperation with the Russian space program. The Hungarians were cooperating with them, and also we were in that Eastern Bloc, so we got most of the propaganda news from there. So we in the news there were a lot of Soyuz launches. So I think those were the first. And beside that, there were some sci-fi series that they presented in the television, and I was a big fan of them. So for example, there was a German series called Orion spacecraft, Adventures of Orion spacecraft, something like that, and that was really nice. And also, yeah, I watched the Space 1999 series at that time, and they were very inspiring. And of course, I read a lot of sci-fi, so that together, those were the first. But I don't really remember how old I was there. Probably 6 years old or something like that. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned you just missed the last Apollo landing in 1972. I also missed it, but a little bit more. I was born in 75, which happens to be the same year the previous NASA administrator was born as well. So at least we have one thing in common.
Yeah.
Growing up, did you feel like it was just a matter of time before we went back to the moon? Or did you feel like, oh my gosh, I missed it, it's such a shame?
No. I was always sure that we are going to return. Actually, I thought that we would have returned much more earlier than this. So I really feel it's a bit ridiculous compared to the technical level they had at the time, and that was amazing how fast they developed the Saturn and the Apollo system. and compared to that, we just stuck in low Earth orbit for so long that this actually I have some not so common or widespread views of alien civilizations and how they could be present on Earth. So maybe that could have something to do with that, that we return to the moon so late. And if you think about that, so there was at the time at the space race, at that first space race between Russia and I mean, it was not Russia, it was the Soviet Union and the US. They were competing with each other to reach the moon. Who is reaching the moon first, and who is actually, I think it was the Soviet Union who reached the moon first with the first probes, Luna, whatever. But of course, then the US won with the astronauts, and that was actually a good thing, because it helped to develop some other in some other manner these countries. But there was a big motivation for going there, and they put in a lot of effort and resources, a lot of money. And but then the US won, and then suddenly it was not so important anymore, probably from the government, and they slowly stopped it, instead of what was perhaps expected even then. They would go for longer stay, or go further to the Mars, and it didn't happen. So I see there is a possibility that maybe some alien civilization agreement or whatever could cause it, but of course we don't know that. But yeah, maybe we will, because now they have some. They are getting more open in this question, the governments.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing. You know, possessing the technology to travel between the stars. I mean, even if you look at our own technology today, and you went back 100 years, those people would have no way of relating to you.
Yeah.
So if technology continues to progress, you know, what will we be capable of doing? I mean, the only difference between magic and engineering is understanding, but then results pretty much the same.
Yeah, actually, I see that it is possible to develop some technology which allows us to travel between the stars, and also actually, if we don't want to be that strict that we want to reach the next star in a lifetime, theoretically we can produce something which can a more generation starship which can get there in some 100 years or something like that. So it is not impossible. And as they calculated, if there is a civilization who wants to settle on more stars, or who wants to spread in the galaxy, and they only have this slow rockets, slow technology, so nothing like fancy warp drive or Alcubierre drive or whatever, and then they could spread in the galaxy in quite short time. I mean, galactically watching in some 1,000 or in 100,000 years. So it's not that much. Well, it depends if they survive for that long or not. So I think it's possible, and I also see that there are some promising technologies and physical principles which will be maybe cracked in a not too far future, and we will see. So yeah.
You talk about having like a generation ship that's moving slowly between the stars. You could imagine us sending one of those off, takes 1,000 years to get to the star. But in that time, we develop technology that allows for us to go twice as fast. And so, we have newer people that are arriving earlier. But in the time that it took for them to go, we developed something that even went faster. And so you have like newer people arriving there even earlier than those people. And, I wonder how many of these you could have. And then you kind of have this, the previous generation showing up in waves afterwards.
Yeah, that would be funny for the ones who are there already. Perhaps it would not be that funny for the ones who were traveling for 1,000 years. Yeah.
They're like, we should have waited at home. We could have still gotten here, but it would have been so much quicker.
Yeah. There are some novels, I think, about this, as I recall. But I think if there would be such a situation with the faster technology, I think they would stop at the spaceship slowly progressing. Yeah. But then anyway, it would be a bit hard to understand for the ones who were sacrificing their comfortable and wide life. I mean, in wide spaces, in the nice places on Earth. So they would sacrifice their life for that dream, and then it turns out that okay, it could be achieved faster and without this sacrifice. Yeah, that's true.
So we're planning to go back to the moon, and it looks like we're way beyond just graphics and PowerPoints and talk. We actually have a rocket on the launch pad. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, it's great. It was really time for that. So yeah, I recall when I was young, and my father told me, so we were outside somewhere, and my father showed me, pointed at the moon and told me that, my son, the Americans were there. So that was that's a nice memory actually I have about my father, and yeah, as I thought, I was expecting to return to the moon, and I was expecting to have a Skiffy-like future for us, humanity, and actually that's something Elon also explained, that an exciting future is something which is an important thing. And so now I can see that this can happen at last. So yeah, I am very happy about it. Absolutely waiting for that.
At what point did you feel like this time might be different than all the other times we hoped we would go to the moon?
Yeah, actually, it was not, returning to the moon was not really the topic, I think about 20 years ago, something like that. So they were talking about building the International Space Station back then. And the Russian space program had also their space stations. So everyone was focusing on the low Earth orbit and what they can do. And of course, I had a hope secret hope that it will lead to eventually go to the moon again, but it didn't happen for quite long. And then and the moment when I felt that it is changing was when they started to think about the commercialization of space. So when they, I recall, I wrote, there are some forums, I'm writing some posts, and there is a space-related forum, of course. And I recall that we were discussing that with the guys, what is going to happen, what is the hope that this space technology is going to develop faster, because we saw that it is somehow is stuck. So it's expensive. Mostly it is expensive, and because if it's expensive, they don't do it, and it's not developing. And we were thinking about two different topics which could help to break from this situation, break out from the situation. And one of those was we saw that China is starting to develop their space tech, and that was one thing. The other thing was this commercialization of space. So these commercial companies which are working in a different way than the state organization, that the big state organization, which are excellent because they achieved a lot of things, but they are not focusing that much on lowering the costs, I think. So for a private company, it's a must, because yeah, otherwise it just cannot survive. But for a state organization, it's a little bit different, of course. Yeah, it's some part politics, and other part how is the general condition of the economy, and so that's a different thing. And then I recall that I hope that there was, if you recall, there was this Roton spacecraft which had this propeller-like, rotor-like. Actually, it's a rotor with some small rockets, and it could come back to Earth. That was an initiative before SpaceX, and I was hoping that it could be something. There were some other similar similar companies and ideas, but then as SpaceX started to work, I wrote the guys that look at this company, this will achieve something, and they thought that this is another slideware company, so they are not going to produce any hardware. They are going, at the time it was the PowerPoint slides which were the product of most of these companies, because that's what they made, some fancy graphics, but they didn't really make anything else, and they tried to get some money for that from the investors. But then I thought that SpaceX is different, but most of the guys, they didn't believe me. But yeah, we can see that what happened. So I think that was the point when I felt that now it's gonna change, and I think and I still think that it is a very important factor in that. Yeah.
So whenever you kind of look at where we are now and project it forward, especially with all your work you do with like What About It and the other projects you're associated with, where do you think we could get in 200 years?
200 years is a lot. So I am usually very optimistic. But so in 200 years, I think what is for sure, we will have cities on Mars, not only one, but several cities on Mars, and there will be a lot of people living on Mars, a lot of people living on the moon, and working. There will be industry. I think probably the moon is going to be very much used, mined for different resources, and in 200 years, which is as I thought, it's a very much time. I also can imagine that big space stations, space habitats could be built, like O'Neill cylinders. So it will not only be the planets and the moons. So it's not only Mars, the moon. It's also in the higher atmosphere part of Venus. We are going to have some habitats there, I'm sure. And what I think is we are going to have a lot of space-based solar power. So most of our energy is going to either come from those big solar power plants in the space in different regions, and beamed to not only to Earth, but also to the space stations, to the colonies on different places in the solar system. And perhaps, yeah, probably fusion is going to be a major energy source for us. And in 200 years, I really can imagine that it's not gonna be only the solar system where the humans are, but probably in 200 years, I think we can go to the closer solar systems. I think so. Yeah.
That would be
so. Humanity is gonna spread.
Yeah, all we have to do is figure out how to get to one star. Once that happens, then the entire universe is ours. Yeah. If you could, would you take a trip to space?
Yeah, of course. Why not? Yeah, actually, I have 3 kids, so that's a responsibility. But if I can see that it is reasonable, it is safe enough, then I would definitely go to low Earth orbit for sure, to the moon for sure. Mars at the moment, I mean, yeah, at the moment. So we are not at the Mars, but we are going to be, I think, in not so many years is needed to reach Mars for the first humans. But for that level of space travel, when anybody can think that okay, now I buy the ticket and I go to Mars, that's gonna be a bit later, yeah, because the infrastructure has to be built. But anyway, Mars is a bit further away, so it's another level of journey. So it's more years at currently. But with the family, yeah, sure. If I had the possibility, yeah. But yeah, I should ask the family also about that.
So will it be will you just need a majority vote, or do you have to get everybody to agree? Like, what's the decision-making process?
Yeah. I think so. For a Mars trip, it's if it's like 4 years or something like, so that's a lot. So I think everyone should agree that he or she wants to come, but because that's a lot. So I as I recall, when I was young, teenager, so on, and they would tell me that, okay, now you can go to Mars, and then just you are gonna travel on a spaceship for half a year, and then you are going to be on Mars for 1.5 years, something like that, and then the next the next possible it's a constellation. It's a constellation. With the next possible open window, launch window, we can come back. And I would think about that, because being on Earth as a kid or as a teenager, visiting the different states and different cities, knowing a lot of culture, different cultures. So that's a very exciting thing to sacrifice for a long journey there, a long journey back, and then probably it would not be that comfortable at the time. So it has to be agreed for each and everyone. Actually, my elder son told me that he would go to Mars if he could. Yeah.
How old is he?
Yeah, 16.
16. Okay.
Yeah.
You're talking about really getting out of the house.
Yeah.
So let's say you, your son, or one of your other descendants actually immigrates to Mars, and now their families have been on Mars, and it's like 200 years in the future, you know, so 22, right? And your great, I'm not sure how many greats it is, but she's really great, granddaughter is on Mars in school, in history class, doing a project on the 2020s. So she's 200 years in the future looking back at you. Just like school kids today might actually look back, you know, at 1820 as an example. What do you hope happens in this decade that will be worth writing about in 200 years?
In this decade, yeah. So one thing for sure is going to be returning to the moon. That's for sure. But in this decade, there is a possibility that the first human set the foot on Mars also. So that could be a really big thing. And what else this decade? Yeah. I hope we just get rid of the pandemic stuff, because that was enough from that for this decade. Other than that, yeah, a unified Earth would be nice, but that's almost impossible. Yeah. So I think that those two things, Moon and Mars, and I think that those will be the big achievements. Maybe with the help of lower cost space access, we can build these solar-based, space-based solar power stations, and with the help of that, we can reduce the CO2 emissions, and actually we can manage to limit or regulate this global warming stuff. And I can think of also a way how we could reduce the volume of sun light, sun energy to reach Earth with really huge volume dimension space structures we can build on L1 Lagrange point of Earth, and then we can regulate how much light we are letting reach Earth, and that way, yeah. But that's also a bit further away, but that's a possibility.
Yeah, absolutely. Some type of astronomical shutters that you could open up and close. You're like, oh, it's getting a little too cold in here. So you open it up. It's getting too warm. You close it.
Or just change the attitude of those really huge foils. It should be something like a very lightweight stuff. And yeah, I think that's a possibility, and that would be nice. Because yeah, as you mentioned, in 200 years, if we want our children, the children of our children, and so on, next generations, if we want to leave them a nice place to live, then the global warming is something that we have to solve.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for talking to me this morning, or I guess this afternoon for you. And before we go, is there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, nothing, not much. I really hope that this time we are going to stay on the moon, as the plans are saying, are telling us, and I really hope that this space economy, what we were talking about, which is just starting to grow, it grows quickly, and in our lifetime we will see big things. Yeah, that's it.
I think the 2020s are going to be to space what the 1990s were to the internet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, good deal. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, ciao.